are legitimate questions about the truth of Holder's testimony.
But constitutional law professor Jonathan Turley, a fierce critic of the Bush administration and Obama voter, says Holder should resign in an op-ed in USA Today.
What Eric Holder did is he crossed a line, a very important one. He endangered a free press. If Eric Holder were a rational actor, he would resign. He's damaged goods. I'm not too sure why he'd want to keep limping along. But if he refuses to go, he needs to be fired.
All right, there you go. Jonathan Turley, ladies and gentlemen, speaking to, I believe that was CNN yesterday after his op-ed. Joining us now, and welcome back to the Steve Molesberg Show. Joining us now is David Freddoso, columnist for the Washington Examiner. Hello, David. How are you, sir?
Hello, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Good to talk to you. Appreciate it. Okay, so do you agree with Mr. Turley that at the very least Eric Holder needs to resign?
I do think that is, I think so, and I think it's really, he mentions it in terms of Holder's own self-interest and his, him as a rational actor. I think when you look at the president as a rational actor, he's at a point now where something has to give. He has other big scandals on his hands, like Benghazi and the IRS business, and now you've got the additional scandal of spying on journalists. And then apparently Holder's testimony, which suggests he either lied there or he lied to a judge to get access to James Rosen's emails and phone calls. So something has to give here, because the press, you might have noticed, is a little more hostile when you start going after them like this.
And not only that, no, I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt,
yeah,
but
no, that's the main point, though. That's just the thing, is that Obama has to make some heads roll here. If somebody doesn't get fired soon, I think the entire effectiveness of his presidency will be completely out the window. I don't think he's got a lot of time left.
Well, okay, let's focus on something else that Eric Holder has done, which I don't think it's had the desired effect that he was looking for. I think it's had the complete opposite effect, and that is inviting media outlets and representatives to have a off-the-record, briefing on, I guess, all these scandals and talk to the folks. But everyone, or most news outlets, with few exceptions, have said no, they're not coming, and they did not go from all indications. And it would put them in a terribly awkward situation, these journalists who are trying to find out about what he knew about going after journalists, and then they'll come out of that meeting and everything they heard is off the record, so they're not at liberty to really discuss it. So of course they're not going to go. At least anyone with any integrity, I would think, isn't going to go.
Yeah, I just got off a long phone call, so I haven't been able to check. But the last I saw, Politico and the Washington Post were planning on attending, which surprised me a lot, I'm going to say, because I completely agree with you here. This is one of those things they talk to you about in journalism school. Off the record is for trusted sources who are going to give you good information that you can use to write things in the future. They can point you in the right direction, that sort of thing. That's what off the record is for. This off the record is not for government officials trying to cover their rear ends after being accused of some kind of government malfeasance. And that's what this looks like. This looks like the Justice Department trying to make amends, but do it in a way that the press can't write about it. And yeah, after showing such bad faith by going after these journalists without first going to the news organizations, which is, in the AP's case, it's especially egregious. I don't think that anybody thinks the Associated Press is filled with potential traitors or enemy spies for al-Qaeda, and yet that's the way the Justice Department chose to treat them. And in Rosen's case, they actually talk about him as a criminal co-conspirator in the warrant and that's the only way they were able to get this warrant. So, have it one way or the other. You can't say you're off the record and expect journalists to accept that politely and go along with you.
Well, no, you would think, and we're talking to David Freddoso, columnist for the Washington Examiner, even the CNN and I believe Huffington Post, they turned it down. But, the AP, who also turned it down, and the New York Times, who turned it down. But the AP, I think, has now come out and revealed that more the number of documents and the number of records taken was much higher in scope than we had even originally thought. But, so you have that, and you have Rosen, and you have the remarks, the possible remarks that may turn out to be perjury by the Attorney General. This is not the first time this Attorney General has shall we say, misled Congress. It happened on Fast and Furious, where he had to come back and correct his testimony because after it was revealed that he had, in fact, been told about it or knew about it in some regard, where he had said he just found out about it a month ago. And even dating back to other issues, we had Andy McCarthy on just yesterday, who pointed all the way back to the pardoning of to the confirmation hearings and the pardoning of Mark Rich, where he made denials which turned out to be misleading, and that's a generous account. So this is not the first time, and he's already been held in contempt. I mean, how much more could we put up with from this guy?
Well, and his biggest problem now is that it's not just him, right? You've got all these IRS officials behaving in a similar way, where they were asked direct questions by Congress and they gave misleading answers. And remember, when you talk to Congress, you're not just under an obligation to say things that are true, you're required to tell the whole truth. So if you mentally reserve and deceive members of Congress when you're testifying under oath, that is also, that's a big problem. It could be perjury in some cases. So you've got so much dishonesty going on in the government. This is why Eric Holder has to be the first to go. He's an at-will employee that Obama can just fire. It's going to be a lot harder to get rid of Lois Lerner. She can continue at the IRS collecting her pay, while nobody accepts any responsibility for what went on with the targeting of conservative groups. And if that's happening and Eric Holder's not moving, people have to ask, if they're not asking it already, is anybody accountable for anything in this administration? Nobody seems to know who made any decisions, and nobody seems to know who's responsible ultimately.
Are you surprised that in the latest poll that's out, the AP record seizure it finishes third behind Benghazi, which is second, and then, of course, the IRS scandal, which is first?
Yeah, no, it doesn't surprise me that much, because I think the effect that the IRS scandal will, or that people will perceive it having on them, is much bigger. Everybody pays taxes. Everybody is out there dealing with the IRS year to year. When it comes to the press, it's an indirect effect. I think it's a much more insidious and dangerous possibility of undermining the free press, which our founding fathers talked about how essential a free press is to a free and open society. But so people may not recognize that scandal is probably more serious. They think, oh, that's just a journalist thing. Journalists are worried about this, and they're so narcissistic. Yeah, journalists are narcissistic, but in this case, this really does affect you. I mean, let me just give you an example right now. Let's say that, I want to try to get some IRS folks to talk to me about that scandal and about how things work in the Cincinnati office and the Washington offices and what happened. How do I know Eric Holder isn't monitoring, to see whether they might, or it's not so much me, it's how do they know? They are government employees who could lose their jobs, which otherwise are safe for the rest of their lives. Why would they ever talk to a journalist?
It's widely believed, and I think you're making that case, that one of the purposes of the whole, targeting of Rosen and targeting of the AP, and then making it known, is because of the fact that they want to put an end to so-called whistleblowers, put an end to people coming forward and giving information, whether it's of national security interest or even here where it might be a whistleblower and do some good, for the country. You know what I'm saying? Even when it's not a national security risk, they just want to intimidate people into not coming forward for any reason.
Yeah, well, and just to add another point along those lines, with the AP story, the White House was about to crow about this the following day. And that's why the AP had this story and responsibly, I think, held it for days out of national security concerns.
They agreed to hold the story, yeah.
Right, and they held it for 5 days, and then finally they get a call that says, okay, the national security concern about this story is gone. We'll let you put it up 5 minutes before Obama gives his press conference.
And they said, no way.
Give me a break. We're not going to. We're putting it up right now. Then, we don't, and good for them. I mean, as much water as it seems the mainstream media carries for the Obama administration in certain areas, they don't work for them, and at least they believe that, and they try to maintain some semblance of integrity. Good for them.
One would hope. One would hope. All right, David, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate talking to you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Take care. David Freddoso, ladies and gentlemen, Washington Examiner.